eventually stopped because he wasn't getting the nurturing that he needed. And so by the time he was about 4, when his dad, of course, was a provider, his dad went out to work. He didn't have time to see what the mom was doing. And, he took care of the family. But the boy started acting really strange at about 4 years old. But at that time, his emotions were already stunted. He had already developed what I believe the antisocial personality disorder. And it's just amazing the difference because his brother was normal functioning, right? As an adult, had a family, and kids, and then he, on the other hand, at 14 years old, murdered 2 little girls just because they got mad at him and they didn't say hi to him in the elevator, and he was in prison. So it just that really resonated with me, that story did, because it is so important that as babies, even as babies, they need nurturing. They need that. You can't, they need nurturing, they need care, they need love, so we can develop those emotions.
And like
I love that, Stacey.
No, that was a great point.
Yeah, because as a mom myself, and we see women who deal with like the postpartum depression, and sometimes wonder why would someone want to kill their baby, or why would someone, you hear the baby screaming and you want to run out the room and different things, not realizing the levels of postpartum depression, right? And everyone's level of it is not the same. But I remember for myself, I didn't want to kill my child or anything, but there was a moment that I was like, I got to get out this house. Like, I wasn't supposed to drive or anything, but I was like, if I don't get, like, the baby wasn't crying or anything. It was the postpartum depression, something that's not talked about, right? We're reimagining the conversations, changing how we approach mental health in our community, in our families. And this is an aspect of it that we have to be able to recognize the signs. So when you even think about, we're talking about wounds, WOUNDS, but even in the womb, and mother, for what we're carrying, there are babies and moms that have such a disconnection at a couple of days old, where the mother is like, okay, I don't want to touch him, I don't want to do, I don't want to hug him, I don't want to do anything. And we see that as we grow up. So that was a very, very good point.
Well, and to talk about it like in terms of a behavioral intervention. So if I were to have you in session, and let's say that you're going through postpartum depression, which a lot of my patients do, one of the first things that we would look at is what's called the levels of social support. And so here's something for everybody to do for homework. I want you to identify people who provide emotional support, tangible support, and informational support. So emotional support is the outlets that you need to do that, just to be able to share your emotions, talk about how you're feeling. Tangible support is like, no, they dropped off some Chipotle because I didn't have time to cook today. Or, this is somebody that takes my kid to practice, or this is grandpa that comes by and sits with the kids so I can just go outside and, catch my breath. So tangible support. And then informational support, it could be a counselor, it could be a support group. It could be what we're doing right now at Reimagine. It's getting good information that will allow you to be able to gauge like how you're functioning. And so a lot of times what happens is people suffer in isolation. I want y'all to remember, isolation and depression are cousins. They are related. So anywhere you see isolation, you're going to find depression. Okay.
Thomas, you better quit preaching up here tonight. You understand me?
No, you were here last week. I told you you'll get barbershop or boardroom from me.
If y'all not getting, look, if y'all have not shared this broadcast out yet, because we see some comments, Gentle Park is like, this is good, right? And we want you all to actually, y'all don't get scared because he said homework, right? But this is life changing. If you're trying to do something different and you want to see some different changes in your family, take these nuggets and take these action steps so that we can bring down this crisis that's happening in our community and our family. So look, Katrina said, look, come on now, Thomas, you better teach us.
I teach you. And so this is the thing. I'm clinical, but I'm also spiritual.
Yes.
And so Jeremiah 29:11 is clear. It says, before you were formed, I knew you. And I had thoughts for you of good and not evil. So that has to let people know that like the way I was designed was preordained. And then the way that they taught us about the development of the fetus, like they used to tell you that it was the race to the egg to fertilize the egg. But what we really find when we really study is that the egg, the sperm cell that's going to fertilize the egg is predetermined. And the reason why it's a race is to give that sperm cell the momentum that it needs to crash through the barrier of the egg.
Wow.
So it's really not a race. You really are pre-selected. And so when we understand that we're part of a pre-selection process, then what we have to do is then begin to understand, okay, now what am I plugging into? And so for a lot of us, we're born into families, like I'll give some of my own. I come from a family of workaholics and alcoholics. So what happens is the way that we deal with stress is either we work our way through it or we drink our way through it. Yeah. And so like there was no counseling, like we'll go to church on Sundays, but in terms of like real coping, it's workaholic or alcoholic. And what ends up happening is we then can only get to certain levels of intimacy in our relationships because what we find is comfort in being away, whether it's allowing the disassociation of drinking or the disassociating of working. Okay.
Ooh, I love that.
No, I mean, it's real. And so what ends up happening is because those are our behavioral patterns, now like we have to reset it. So like for me, I'm one of the leaders in terms of the males in my family now. And so I do very subtle things. Like when we have family outings, family barbecues, I make sure that the men part of the team cleaning up. And it's like, that's all the men up and down the generational thing. Like the women can't do all the work no more. Like we're not making the women cook for Thanksgiving. Like we're going to put in money, we're going to cater. Because guess what? Now all the ladies in my house, they work. So it's a day off for them. That don't mean they got a slave in the kitchen.
Come on now.
And it's like, I had to reset that. But the thing for me was because I had the ability and I had the access to see what healthy functioning looks like, then I can begin to mimic it. But for a lot of us, we don't see what healthy functioning is. So we don't know how to make it exist in our own lives. And that's where it's like we got to get around more healthy functioning.
The comments, I want you all to type recognize and reset. Because I think that's a problem too. A lot of people we don't even recognize. And like I said, even on a spiritual level, the same way when we go to the doctor and they ask us about our family medical history, you all knowing your family spiritual history is vital to the levels and how you're going to break the generational curses and receive the generational blessings, right? And so recognize and reset, because some of us don't even recognize the patterns, normalize the patterns that aren't serving us anymore. And so now because we've normalized that, it's like, oh, well, it's normal for us to be workaholics. It's normal for us to be addicted to the grind. It's normal for us to be addicted when we have 5 or 6 people in our family or more, the males or females going to jail. It's normal for only 1 or 2 people to get a degree or 5 or 10 drop out of high school, right? And so Yentl said this is blessing her because her and her son deal with some mental issues. Yentl, 1, we are praying for you. 2, we are happy to have you here because this is why we're doing what we're doing this month. And you all, who knows, it may even continue because this, like Thomas said, this is real.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, the word is clear. It says, you know, the battles that we face is not flesh and blood, but it's spirit and principalities, right? Right. So like in a lot of instances, we've been battling strongholds, but we've been using the wrong weapons in terms of being able to face some of these battles. And so one of the things is like you think about Saul and David, like Saul was trying to give him his armor, but that wasn't necessary for him to fight that battle. And if you think about it, what David did is he looked at God's track record and said, you know, he helped me defeat the bear and the lion. This uncircumcised Philistine doesn't stand a chance. And so what we have to understand is that in our lives, there's the ability for us to go get 3 smooth stones, right? But the 3 smooth stones, first of all, is being able to utilize faith and to be able to utilize our family spirituality, but then also understand that that's not where it ends in terms of healthy functioning. That's just one facet of it. We also have to look at what our family history is and like how we deal with mental health challenges. Because in a lot of instances, we've had undiagnosed PTSD, we've had undiagnosed ADD, we've had undiagnosed bipolar disorder. And what we did is normalize it and really just lock the people away. You know, that we just gonna drop off a plate for cousin Earl or, you know, what have you. And I realized that, no, we have to be able to help them socialize. I mean, a big thing with bipolar disorder is healthy socialization. And it's like a lot of times when people are getting medicated with that disorder, once they start to feel better, they will deny that they have it.
Yep.
And then that leads to them becoming what's called medicinally non-compliant, meaning like they don't take the dosage of medicine at the time they're diagnosed. And what happens then, they have a brain chemistry issue where they become unbalanced. And that unbalance is what leads to hypermania or manic depression. And so we have to be able to really understand those things and then be able to gauge. It's like, Gerod, if I'm checking in with you and me and you are relatives and you feel safe to tell me things when you're not judged, you can always say, Thomas, today was an unmanageable day. And I would be able to say to you, okay, how many unmanageable days have you had in a row? And if you say, okay, no, 17, okay, cool, we got to do some interventions. You know, how can we help you? But it's like what happens a lot of times with us, we're so used to judging the people in our families that are struggling, and a lot of people end up suffering in silence.
So you got me thinking about what you said earlier about how depression and isolation are cousins.
They related, yes, they are.
Right. So
related.
I'm thinking about how can you talk about how to discern when, because I think there are times where it's appropriate to isolate yourself for whatever reason. How would you advise people to know when to and when not to?
That's a wonderful question. So here's what I want everybody to do. Here's another homework. I want you to develop some touch points. And so, like, for instance, in my family, we have a family chat. And it's like 23 of us on the family chat. And like my mother, every morning she sends out a prayer. People will put the amen hands up. They'll do whatever. But what happens is that's the touch point for everybody. And so I'll never forget when my mom, she had a small scale stroke about 3 years ago. This was right before COVID hit. And my uncle said, man, hey, I stopped by the house and her speech was slurred. And when I asked her to go to the doctor, she said, no, but you should call her today. And so I called her. I heard her voice immediately slurred. And I said, meet me at the hospital. I'm coming to get you. We're going to the emergency room. And that saved her life. And it was just a touch point. So we have to get back to touch points in terms of managing our family unit. And Gerod, if I call you and you say, no, hey, Skeet, look, I'm cool, but I just need a couple of days to be by myself. It's like, okay, no problem. Look, just circle back when you come back up for air and let me know everything's okay. I mean, that's a 5-second conversation. But what happens is a lot of times, and I said this last week, we don't inspect what we expect. And we have to inspect what we expect. And if we help, if we're able to develop it, and I saw what the lady said about some families don't have safety zones. Well, then that's when we have to be able to construct a village that doesn't just exist with our blood family members. You know, we got to get back to that. I mean, because think about it, like when I grew up, I knew all my neighbors. Now you go into the garage, you don't know half the people living with you.
No,
right?
Yeah.
And you don't even try to get really. We don't have a village. We really don't have the village like we used to. Even I take time to do wellness checks. And it may even be someone who's, like you said, that community of someone who's not your blood, right? And then when we're paying attention, because we can see it's not all the time what people are saying, right? It's the nonverbals as well.
That's what they're not saying. That's right. Well,
right, in the workplace or anywhere.
And I want to give everybody a new definition of family. So the new definition of family is a group of people who have agreed to love and be present for one another.
Okay.
It's a group of people who have agreed to love and be present for one another. Notice I didn't say that it was something that was connected by blood, by proximity. It's a group of people that have agreed to love and be present for one another. And we're living now in a time where we're having more and more blended families. Because, I mean, divorce is at an all-time high. People who are having children outside the bubble of marriage is higher than it's ever been. So we're going to be connected sometimes to people that we're not related to. But that doesn't mean that we still can't consider them family.
Right.
So we have to be able to reshape and reimagine this new definition of family. And then, like any other relationship, we have to set healthy standards and boundaries.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just, because you all, if this has been good to you all so far, drop something in the comments, like your favorite emoji. Look, we want to hear from you. Like, drop your nugget of the moment right now, okay? Because if you're doing other things, you should have been stopped by now, because you should be all in. You should be in the moment, right? And so if you're driving, don't be texting and all of that. You can be and go back, catch the replay. You should have your notebook out and everything, because the tips that you can take away and use use right now. And so tonight we're talking about mom and dad wounds, right? What are those wounds? How can we have the conversations? How can we create those safe zones? How can we reimagine the definition? Thomas just gave us an amazing definition of family, right? And then he even shared some tips that their family is using. So one, create a chat, hop on a Zoom every weekend, once a week, or every month, or whatever that looks like. Because some of us on Zoom all the time anyway, you on social media all the time anyway, right? But having those wellness checks. So type something in the comments that you're like, I'm gonna implement this starting like tonight, this week, because we want you all to take action. So when we're thinking even of family, and I love the definition that Thomas gave, how do we apologize, right?
Well, so here's the
for
thing.
the wounds, if it's from a mom or it could be from someone else or a dad. What does that look like?
Okay, so the pathway to healing first starts with being able to identify the triggers. So the formal definition of a trigger is a person, place, event, or feeling that leads to a behavioral outcome. And so we can have positive triggers or negative triggers. So like, I'll give you an example. Anytime I hear the bells of like an ice cream truck,
all I'm saying, Thomas, what you getting from the ice cream truck, okay? What you getting?
I mean, I would get either a bomb pop or like, chili cheese Fritos. It depends on the weather. But at the end of the day, that's a positive trigger because it takes me back to a happy place. Right. But then I've had people in treatment who told me, no, Thomas, a McDonald's bathroom is a trigger for me because that's where I would OD when I was using heroin. And so we have to understand that people have negative and positive triggers. Yeah. So as we're working towards healing, then we have to understand that. And then for a lot of people, betrayal is present in the family system. And I mean, if you think about it, like no Jesus, no Judas, right? So we saw betrayal in the Bible, but there are 3 responses to betrayal. It's reconciliation, retaliation, or separation. Reconciliation, retaliation, or separation. Now, for the believer, retaliation is off the table because God said vengeance belongs to him. So that gives us two choices. We can either reconcile or we can separate. For a lot of people, they tend to want to reconcile with people who want to separate from them. So as we're beginning to manage our family systems and look for those people who are going to be intentional about being connected, I need to know, like, you want to be connected to me on that. And it's like relationships without reciprocation always lead to toxicity. Relationships without reciprocation always lead to toxicity. If I'm always the one that's giving, Stacey, at a certain point, like the laws of depositing and withdrawing are going to come into place and I'm going to be empty. So we have to have some reciprocation. But a lot of times what happens because of attachment, and this gets back to that, if I have anxious attachment, I'm going to try to fix everybody. I'm going to try to overperform so I can be seen, heard, and then recognized. And a lot of times people will unknowingly use that against you. And that's why in the family system, we have over-functioning members, functioning members, and under-functioning. And the goal is to have everybody operating at a functioning level, not over or under. Because if you over-function for an extended period of time, that leads to burnout, physical disease in the body, emotional distress. And if you under-function, what that leads to is depression, not being able to live out your purpose, and basically just taking up God's space.
That's good. Whoa.
Wow.
Come on here with the nuggets.
Okay. I'm telling you, like, I love the reconciliation, separation, retaliation. Like you said, for believers, retaliation, I'm going to say should not be an option, okay? Y'all, we got to grow to that level, some of us, right? Right? But when you do get to that level, there's so much more peace. There's so much more joy.
And, like, there's so much power in forgiveness. It is. So, like, it's not easy sometimes to get to the position when we can forgive. But there is amazing things that happen when we say, okay, even though this person did me wrong, I'm going to release them. I'm going to release them. And like a lot of times I'll see it.
That's good.
I'll see it in session where people have held people hostage for years. I mean, years. But it's like unforgiveness is like when you pour a cup of poison, but then you drink it. And so what ends up happening is you just get bound by unforgiveness. And so we have to find ways to validate our feelings and say, hey, Gerod, even though you did me wrong, like let's say I gave you that money for that car payment and you never paid me back. At the end of the day, I gotta remove myself from being an offense from you. Now that forgiveness does not equal restoration. It does not mean that the relationship needs to be restored. But by forgiving you, I release me from the obligation of having to be present with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big issue is people understanding what forgiveness look like. You know, some people think like if I forgive you, it's almost an excuse for you to, you know, hurt me again. But you know, it's to your point, it's not that right there.
Forgiveness doesn't mean restoration.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is we have to make sure that people qualify to be at certain levels. So if we were to do a relationship constellation, Carleeka, we would have confidants, we would have comrades, and we would have constituents. So confidants, that's where we get the word confidential from. Those are the people in our inner circle that I can share my innermost secrets with.
Right.
Those are people that I can trust, like this not gonna stab me in the back. Then if I go from confidants to comrades are friends, and those are people that care about me, but I can't trust them with the same information that I would trust with a confidant. And then the last one is constituents. Constituents are people that they with you as long as everything you doing benefits them. But the minute you do something that don't benefit them, they remove their support from you and give it to somebody else. And one of the problems that we have in families is that sometimes we give confidential access to constituents. And then we get upset when we get burnt by that. So we have to be able to identify what our inner circle should be. And I always tell people 4 quarters is always better than 100 pennies. So I would want to have a small inner circle that then I could be vulnerable with. And then I got to branch myself outwardly that way. And for a lot of people, we don't always have that insight because we're starving for connection. And what ends up happening is, you know, like if you give me a little, like let's say I have a daddy wound and I'm a female, and then I meet good old Jeffrey out here in the street, and Jeffrey give me just enough attention. Then I'll look past all them I'll be colorblind to them red flags because I just got the attention. But what ends up happening is then I give him confidential access to something that really he should only be at a constituents level. And I mean, if you think about it, this is demonstrated before us with the federal government. Everybody don't walk around with a top secret clearance. And it's like, you know, we can't give these clearances for confidentiality to just anybody. People have to be vetted.
You're talking about having to reset your thinking, though, when your friends, you know, the people that are closest to you, you tend to trust them. But what's the issue with that? With
well, this is the thing. I take a good enemy over a weak friend any day.
What you said?
Because like a good enemy, at least I'm prepared for the throwdown.
Come on, you know what's going on.
I know where you stand, okay?
Like with a weak friend, I'm having an expectation of trust, intimacy, you know, like reciprocation. And a lot of times people they not for you, they're with you. So you got to be able to identify the difference, and only you can do that.
And it's not a matter of them loving you because they might love you, care about you deeply, I would say.
Well, love is a verb.
No,
love is a verb. That's not true. If you love me, that means that you're willing to sacrifice for me, even when it's uncomfortable for you.
I guess I'm thinking about if it's an immature person that hasn't developed in the way, say if they're emotionally immature and they're triggered by something that you're going through, and they could think that they're helping you, you know.
But it's up to you to set a boundary then.
Okay.
It's up to you to set a boundary. Because like for me, like I got plenty of people that I love, like I'm crazy about them, but I can't have them know all my business.
Right.
That ain't gonna work. They use that against me, and the pressure is on.
Right. You have to be able to discern.
You're not getting ready to tap.
Right.
That ain't good.
Discernment. That's where that discernment comes into.
Exactly.
That discernment. Yeah.
Well, and see, a lot of times as we're going through these things, and this gets back to emotional regulation, when we're emotionally vulnerable for connection, it attracts predators. It attracts predators. So one of the things that I work with my patients is first to develop a healthy level of self-love. Because like if I can understand God's love, and so there's 3 types of love that we look at, right? There is philos, that's where we get the word Philadelphia from, that's brotherly love. Then there's eros, that's where we get the word eroticism, that's romantic love. Then there's agape, and that's that godly love. That's Jesus down on the cross for us. And so we have to be able to discern the type of love that we need to exchange with people depending upon what they bring to the table and how we want to exchange with them.
That's good.
That's good. I'm just thinking as you wrap that up. Well, I'll let Carleeka go. I think she had something before we switch topics.
Well, no, let's hear from Stacey. Like Stacey, anything you want to share, experience, anything, just share your thoughts.
So as Thomas was
Look,
coming
Stacey,
out here with
Pastor Thomas, okay?
right, the rev.
The Ram. Oh.
I thought about forgiveness, right? And I thought about how I was jotting the little notes down a little earlier. And I thought about forgiveness and what we talked about forgiveness, and I thought about the word and how Matthew 6:14 says, if you forgive others' transgressions, your heavenly Father will forgive you. And then I thought about Matthew 18:22, where Peter asked Jesus, how many times is it how many times do I forgive my brother?
7 times 70 a day.
Times.
Yeah, come on.
Infinite.
Yeah, come on.
That to me can be very hard, but when I think about how God loves me and how he forgives me, because I know I can be raggedy. I can be raggedy, but he forgives me, and what you said, look, my nugget I done wrote down. Forgiveness does not mean restoration. That was powerful to me, because in my growing within the last couple of years, I've had friends that I thought were confidants, but they actually were constituents. Okay, and they were constituents for years. And you know me, I've been friends with them since high school, so I got to ride with them. I have to ride with them. Well, a couple of years ago, I began to pray, and I was like, Lord, you know what? I need you to change my circle. I need you to put people that are going to pour into me, people that we can go to the next level with. I need you to do that. Yeah. And when I tell you that when he showed me who the constituents were and he moved them, I was really shocked. Like, wow, like I thought they was my doc. You know what I'm saying? My ace boons. I thought that's what it was. But I will tell you that how I knew it was the Lord, because it was such a clean break for me. Well, there was forgiveness. It was a forgiveness for me. I don't have to deal with you, but I still love you. But we're different in different seasons.
Well, and it gets back to what you're talking about, like length of relationship does not determine strength of relationship.
Yeah.
And so even in our family systems, there are times when we're connected to people who we're related to, that they're negative triggers for us. So like I'll never forget, I was doing some clinical work out here in Maryland at a crisis center. And the lady said that her mother's voice was a trigger for her. So she was in treatment, but every time the mother would call, it would send her over the top. And she was like, because the mother had been so critical of her whole life, that whenever she would hear her voice, it would just bring up those feelings of not being good enough. And so it's like, that's also where now we have to also reprogram our internal dialogue to know that, man, we're not just good enough, we're more than enough. Absolutely. And like for some people, like it's hard for them to look in the mirror and see that, because as we get back to the emotional mirroring, nobody had shown them that before.
Yeah.
And so another homework for everybody is, I would love for people to look at themselves the way God looks at them. And it's like, if we could just begin to shift that personal view, what will happen is the way that we would engage with one another would shift. Because then we would be able to enter into relationships realizing that I don't need you to complete me. I don't need you to complete me. I'm already complete. God already created me with everything that I need in order to live. But now I need to be able to be with a person who compliments me. There's a big difference between completing me and complimenting me.
Yes.
And that goes on both genders.
Yes.
So I'm thinking about as you're talking, the difference between acknowledgement versus validation. I think what some people want is to be validated, which I don't think that it's always necessarily a bad thing. No, but if you're depending on people to validate you, like what's the problem?
Well, this is the thing. Real empowerment comes from internal validation. So like, you can't tell me I'm good. I already know that.
I already know that, baby.
You can't tell me that. Because there's a line of people out here that tell you I'm not worth a pill of beans, but I don't believe them. They lie from the pit of hell. But at the end of the day, like, my internal validation is what empowers me. Because you got to think, if I allow external validation to empower me, we saw this with the example of Jesus. 1 minute it was Hosanna, a couple of days later it was crucify that sucker. So we cannot allow external validation to be the final voice, because you have to understand that as we get back to constituents, comrades, and confidants, man, people's opinions are you going to shift. And if you allow the view of you to be tethered to something external, you'll always be controlled by it.
Wow.
So we have to be very conscious of internal validation. Internal validation.
So thinking about, and just continue from that, Father's Day just passed, and a lot of conversations I had where fathers don't get the acknowledgement that fathers get. And would you say the same thing about the word acknowledgement? Or
well, but this is the thing, it's two different roles. So the role of the mother primarily is nurturing. The role of the father is serving. So sometimes what happens is we can be in a position of service and not have people that understand that honor is attached to service. So just like how you talked about isolation and depression are cousins, honor and service are related. There's honor in serving. So like for me, I have Father's Day. My children can't serve me the way that I can. I'm too good at that. So yeah, they can give me some gifts and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like really, I just want honor. And you honor me 365, not on the third Sunday of June. Yeah. So we got to understand how to connect service with honor. Now on Mother's Day, it's no competition. Man, it's the heartbeat of the mother that sets our anxiety level in the womb. So remember, we talked about wombs and wombs, right? So in the womb, the heartbeat of the mother is the thing that lets us know what's going on in the world around us, because we can't see outside her stomach. And so what ends up happening is even when we break the umbilical cord, it's still the heartbeat of the mother that calms us down. That's where all of that comes from. Okay?
I love that.
I love it. Yes.
Look, if you have not shared this broadcast yet, go ahead.
Share.
The share button. It's going to take you like 1 to 2 seconds, because this is rich conversation. This is needed conversation. It's not a one-time conversation. This is an ongoing thing, because our mental health matters. Our mental health is real in the family, in our communities. And the stronger we can build in the families and rebuild and restructure and reimagine how we can have these conversations and take action, because we don't just want to hear, like, y'all, some people have been talking long enough, right? It's time to really take action, because like Thomas said, and Stacey and Gerod, people are literally isolating themselves and dying because they're like, they have to be silent. They don't have a voice. They don't know who to talk to, know who to trust. But guess what? Today is a new day. It's a new opportunity to reimagine. And we're not just talking about this euphoric world that we're trying to create in our head, right? We're talking about taking actionable steps.
Yes.
No, and so here's my homework and my party shot today. Remember last week I said everybody be kind. Now your homework this week is I want everybody to recruit and connect with your inner circle. So I want you to determine who your inner circle is. This is your confidants. I want you to recruit them, and I want you to reach out to them. And then I want you to be intentional and say, hey, I'm touching base with you. You're my inner circle. I'm working on my mental health hygiene, and here's some issues I'm dealing with.
That's good.
Then here's some things that I need for you to pray for me with. Because the thing is, when one or more, they say when two or more come before the Lord, I mean, think about that. And so what we got to do is we got to recruit our inner circle. And then I want you to reach out to them so we can start establishing these touch points. And this is not a one-time thing. I want you to tell them, hey, I'm gonna touch base with you guys at least once a week. And it could be via text, it could be a FaceTime, it could be a telephone call. But recruit your inner circle. And the reason why is because we have to begin to establish healthy levels of support, because the way that we heal is by having positive energy being exchanged. Okay.
Wow. So you all, this has been good to you. I just want you all to drop some fire emojis in the chat. Drop it in the chat. And then you definitely want to tune. If you enjoyed last week, this week, you want to tune in next week. Okay. You don't want to miss any of this. And you go back, listen to the replay, and then share this broadcast with take the link, copy and paste, and share it with the top 5 people in your phone, right? That may be whoever that is in your contact list. Share that with them. And so, Stacey, really quickly, you all, because we respect your time and different things, right? We're getting ready to wrap it up, but we want to hear from each panelist. Just share some quick thoughts with everyone, and then one quick way that they can connect with you as well. Y'all back in the hot seat. 30 seconds or less. Stacey.
Well, just real quick, I wanted to just say, when you said recruit your inner circle, that really resonated with me. because and like you said, the positive energy promotes healing. This is what we need, because we all go through situational depression. We all go through. Some people, unfortunately, go through, depression all the time. It's an ongoing thing. So instead of isolating, I just encourage you to connect with those confidants, connect with those people that will give you positive energy and positive vibes, so it can promote that healing.
Yeah,
I love it. And Stacey, one way people can connect with you.
Well, for me, they can, what you talking about, like as far as my friends or
social media,
social media. I'm on social media as Stacey Livingston. So right now, of course, I don't have my LPC license just yet. Working on that LPCA, but I can be there to just be a positive voice. So
I
you can
love
connect with me at Stacey Livingston on Facebook.
And look, we already saying congratulations to you.
Thank you.
that's right. Congratulations.
Yes. Give me a couple months.
Look, we're excited for you. Because a lot of people are even saying, representation matters, right?
Yes.
So that's a whole other topic. But
Yes.
we're saying congratulations to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Pastor Thomas.
Okay, well, first of all, I really appreciate every week being in this forum. I mean, you guys are doing amazing work just to raise the awareness. So I'm just so thankful to be able to share this information. If people want to get in contact with me, I have my own practice. My website is www.milestonesmhllc.com. So that's milestones. The MH is for mental health, LLC.com. I have a contact form that you can utilize to be able to access me. I'm committed to my community. My purpose God gave me was to help rebuild the family through mental health support and awareness. So, I mean, I'm here every week. If you can't see me on the website, just come back and see me on Tuesdays at 7. And there's infinite topics that we can talk about in terms of restoring healthy functioning.
I love it. Mr. Ware.
Yeah, before I get my nuggets, it's hard to follow a guy like Thomas, but with that being said,
right.
People are asking me, Thomas, can you help people out of state?
Okay, so no, I'm not licensed outside of state, but I could definitely help you find referrals. Right. So there are a number of different places that you can go to find help. One of them is Black Men's Therapy is one, but I have a number of different colleagues all over the country. So even if you are in different jurisdictions, reach out anyway, and I'll help you find the right support.
Yeah. Okay. So my quick thought, the word intentionality. He gave a lot of good nuggets, and we got to be intentional with our growth. Just like I wake up in the morning, I know I got a routine that I got to get in before I go to work. And that's how intentional we have to be with our growth. If not, man, we're just gonna be stuck. Some people on there watch, they got some good information. Unfortunately, they're going to go back to doing what they've been doing. And I'm just encouraging everybody to be intentional with your growth.
Yes, I love that. And so you all, so many amazing takeaways. I'm an action girl, so I just want you to take action, right? You're not going to do all of the things at one time, but tonight choose something that you can do and start implementing and being consistent, because we've been consistent in some area. We've been consistent not having the conversations. We've been consistent normalizing pain, hurt, and defeat, and all of these different and normalizing trauma in our household. We've been consistent in some form or fashion, but you have a new opportunity, right? You have another opportunity to forgive. I'm telling you, Thomas, when you said that, because that's my thing right there, it will do some good through your whole body, y'all. I'm talking about your cellular level. Forgiving will change your life. Getting counseling will change your life, but you have to take the actions. And as the Bible says, we are renewing our minds daily. So this is not a one and done. So look, we say thank you. Reimagine your family structure being different. Reimagine your children's lives being different. Reimagine us taking some steps together in the home, in our communities, rebuilding and breaking up those foundations that the fallow grounds that need to be broken up, planning something more solid. And so look, thank you all for tuning in. Once again, if you have not shared, make sure you share. Go ahead and share. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. You don't know what someone else is needing, and then be an expectation that something amazing is happening in you, through you, and for you and your community and your family. And so until next Tuesday, join us again, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and all the other ones, you got to figure that out on your own. Look, but you all be blessed. Understand we are praying for you as well as you embark on this newness, this journey to push forward and do something different. We're changing the approach to mental health in our community. And who does that start with? You better go ahead and point to yourself. It starts with me. It starts with me. And so you all be blessed, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you share this broadcast.
Peace, y'all. Peace.
Loved it.
1, 2,